It's Friday, July 9th, and time for the Barbados Today Morning News Update. The island's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Kenneth George, has chided Barbadians for disregarding COVID-19 protocols. He's told Barbados Today that residents are mixing indiscriminately and posing major challenges for health officials in their contact tracing efforts. Dr. George's concern comes on the heels of an uptick of new virus cases.
They have the information there. The power is in their hands. People are mixing indiscriminately. People are not wearing masks. And the other challenge we are having is when we are trying to contact trace, people are either giving incorrect information or false information. And that makes the contact tracing so much more difficult. Because as you would expect, if we're going to contact trace an individual, we really rely on that individual's recall and that individual's ability to give us a truthful statement. And we're finding that cases are popping up, and it's only after extreme investigations that we are being able to link some of these cases because we suspect that persons are not being upfront and giving the correct information. The only way we will beat COVID is if we get the cooperation of the public also on this whole issue.
The Chief Medical Officer warned that Barbados is not out of the woods when it comes to COVID-19, especially in light of several variants circulating around the world.
With the variants changing around the globe and with the United States giving information to suggest that just under 50% of their variant is the Delta variant, and in the United Kingdom indicating that 80% of their variant is the Delta variant. That we are not immune if we are part of a global village and a global market, and we have agreed to open our borders. We have to do the correct thing, and I again implore the public to be just conscious of what they do and how they move around Barbados, try to protect themselves.
The government is being asked to explain the price tag for the massive cleanup campaign that followed the eruption of St. Vincent's La Soufrière volcano. It's coming from opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley, who wants details provided in the form of a breakdown of the spending. He's joined by Democratic Labour Party leader VERLA DEPEIZA, who labelled the funds used as an ashfall windfall. Lawmakers on Tuesday approved the supplementary financing from the Ministry of Finance of over $13 million to the Ministry of Transport, Works and Water Resources that hired hundreds of workers to remove the ash from roads and buildings. While opposition politicians are demanding a more detailed breakdown of the money, they said they were puzzled by a further $9 million allocated to 17 other ministries to carry out the same type of work.
If you're saying to me that some of the cleanup work, etc., some of the work occasioned by the ashfall would have been entered into by these ministries themselves, it would have been related to these ministries themselves and the properties for which they're responsible, then I have to ask if the monies requested by Public Works and Transport did not incorporate those works as well. If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let's say the Ministry of Tourism, they may, the airport, for instance, the airport may have needed some cleanup work and stuff subsequent to the ashfall. But would not the monies voted to Public Works have paid for the labor that did that there? That's the kind of question that one would have. And the same would relate to the Ministry of Industry and International Business. One would have to get some further information as to how the Prime Minister's office incurred a debt of $500 and something, $500,000,
Yeah.
But something like that. I know it was over $500,000.
Yeah.
So you got ministries like the Prime Minister's office, Ministry of International Business and Industry, even the Attorney General's office, incurring a debt of $500,000. I think these things need to be further explained. I think that we could benefit from a more minute and detailed explanation from even the Minister of Transport.
DLP President VERLA DEPEIZA, meanwhile, declared that the entire ashfall issue was badly lacking in specifics.
What has been provided is a breakdown by ministry, but there is no detail given whatsoever as to how those monies were spent in each ministry. $22 million is too much to simply rest the figure down and expect the people of Barbados to be satisfied. The Democratic Labour Party now calls on the government of Barbados to give an explanation, give details as to how this money was spent in the asphalt cleanup. We saw the young people on the streets of Barbados cleaning up, and we are grateful to them for the effort. But most certainly, we need to have a detailing as to how our money was spent. The present administration came to office promising transparency, and if ever there was a moment to be transparent, it is now. Explain to us the asphalt windfall. Tell us who the contractors were, what works were done, how the money was spent, does it have a future component? All of these are critical questions that we demand answers for.
In other news this Friday, growing frustration across St. Andrew and other rural parishes as residents faced a full week without electricity following the passage of Hurricane Elsa. Residents told Barbados Today of feeling grossly misinformed by officials from Light and Power about the magnitude of the situation that has left them in the dark. Here is what some residents had to say.
Resident of Belle Plaine and also a resident of Franklin Road, Belle Plaine, St. Andrew, we have no electricity. And in Barbados Light and Power need to stop saying that trucks are being in St. Andrew when we are not seeing any trucks. Yes, I understand that all over the lines are down and what's not, but stop printing that trucks are in Belle Plaine where you're not seeing any. We need electricity.
Talk to me about how the situation has been affecting you on a day-to-day basis.
Well, you can't press. You can't call nobody to tell them nothing. Because with the electricity off, the telephone off too, which is a foolish thing, because I don't see how you could take this thing when if you had gone back in time, when anything happened, you could pick up your phone and you could call and say about something. Now they come up with this foolishness fiber optic. When electricity gone off, your phone gone off. If you got emergency, you can't call nobody and tell them nothing. And that's foolishness.
Rough, man. Carry a lot of meat. Why I had to be, I get ice every morning to put on. But and then nobody could do the storm, so nobody could handle what the storm got. Just got to try. Move on and survive among the storm, because then won't come, another one come. And it's going to be, maybe next one be more rougher than this one.
Up to last night, we were using some searchlight thing and dull. Hurricane like ice, so you can't see to do anything barely limits. So it's awful, you know. You barely limit, you can't even see to make out numbers. So awful. So right now we are fresh. Right now my wife has to throw away a lot of things, so we're fresh this morning.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
The news from our regional neighbors now. Reports out of St. Lucia say former Prime Minister Stephenson King is severing ties with the ruling United Workers' Party and will contest the upcoming July 26 general election as an independent candidate. More in this report from HTS News Force.
The United Workers' Party's flags had long been taken off the grounds of Stephenson King's constituency office. By Thursday morning, the painters were replacing the yellow with the blue, sure sign that the Rubicon had been crossed. Mark Louis, who served his last day Thursday as the attaché to Stephenson King, says the former Prime Minister has met with key members of his constituency to inform them of his decision.
Well, it's all in the public domain, and he will make it public very soon. But it's all what you're seeing is all the effort to get himself ready and prepared for his new journey.
Mark Louis was quizzed on the timing of the announcement of the decision by Stephenson King to contest the seat as an independent candidate.
That's his own personal decision, quite frankly. That is always my view on that. And anybody at any one time is free to associate or dissociate with any group, any individual. And one cannot fault them for doing it, particularly if they have a genuine reason. But as to timing it, that's his own. I mean, decisions like that are what I call personal decisions and determined by one's own personal values, attitudes, and beliefs.
But what was the reaction of the constituents to Stephenson King's decision to depart from the United Workers' Party's candidate lineup?
Well, generally, he was informing his area reps as to what his intentions are, and they received it, they listened quite attentively, and he asked them to formulate their own views as to what they think. And he's not trying to seek to influence them in any way, but simply bring them up to date as to what his intentions are.
On the international front, the death toll following the collapse of a condominium in South Florida continues to climb. It has been 2 weeks since the tragic incident, and so far 60 bodies have been pulled from the rubble.
6 more bodies were found in the rubble of a shattered condominium in the town of Surfside outside Miami. Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava on Thursday announced the latest sobering figures.
Since our last briefing, the team has recovered additional victims. The number of confirmed deaths is now 60.
60 bodies have so far been pulled from the wreckage in the 15 days since the Champlain Towers South condo collapsed. 80 people are still unaccounted for, and crews here said Wednesday they no longer held out hope of finding any survivors.
So yesterday was tough.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said the decision Wednesday to shift from rescue to recovery was painful. But crews were determined to keep working to provide closure to families of missing loved ones.
The work's going to go on, and obviously they're going to identify every single person. And we obviously want to do all we can for the survivors and the family members.
The building fell so forcefully that rescuers could find no air pockets where people might survive for days.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.